Hi everyone, I'm Marbozir and welcome to Civilization 6 Civics tree. So, in this video, I am going to show you everything on the Civics tree. Every single item, every single tooltip, everything that you can find here. I will not be discussing strategies or talking about what's good or what's bad in my opinion, because that's not the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video is to show you what's actually here to begin with. So, I will show you every single tooltip on this tree. Just one quick disclaimer before we get started. This is still a preview build, and the game is still in active development, so any of the values that you will see in this video might still change in the final release. So just something to keep in mind. Let's get started. On the left side you have the key, you can show it or you can hide it, and it explains what all of these colors mean on the actual tree. So first we got Code of Laws. This is the first civic you start the game with. You have to research this first because you don't have a choice. And it unlocks the first 4 policies that you will get in the game. 2 military policies and 2 economic policies. First one is Discipline. This gives your units +5 combat strength when fighting barbarians. Worth noting that this is +5 combat strength, not +5% combat strength. This is actually pretty good and quite significant. Then we got Survey, which doubles experience for recon units. Then we got God King, which is an economic policy, which gives you +1 faith and +1 gold in your capital. Usually a good way to get a Pantheon fast, because it's worth noting that the cost of the Pantheon in Civ 6 does not increase when other civilizations found the Pantheon. Then we got Urban Planning, which is +1 production in all cities. So that's Code of Laws, and Code of Laws leads to Craftsmanship and Foreign Trade. As a side note, I will not be reading all the Eureka bonuses or Inspiration boosts, as they are called on the Civics tree, because you can always see them, they are right here, it would feel a little bit unnecessary. So first we got Craftsmanship. As a side note, I will also hover over the actual policies, because many of them have various built-in bonuses, which are not listed on these items under the policy. They are a built-in part of the policy. As an example, Military Tradition grants flanking and support combat bonuses to all combat units. But we'll get there later. So, Craftsmanship. Craftsmanship unlocks 1 economic policy and 1 military policy. The economic one gives you +30% production towards builders, and the military one gives you +50% production towards ancient and classical era melee and ranged units. So that's a pretty good one if you want to build up your army quickly at the start of the game. Then we got Foreign Trade, which allows creation of trade routes and unlocks the trader unit. The trader is basically the caravan of Civ 6, but it can also create roads. It automatically creates roads as it travels. Then we got policies. We got Caravansaries, which gives you +2 gold from all trade routes. That's an economic policy. And the military policy, which gives you +100% production towards ancient and classical era naval units. And foreign trade also allows joint wars, which means you can establish a joint war against a target civilization. This is the first way in the game to actually declare a formal war, as opposed to surprise war. You can go to war with someone, if that someone actually agrees to join you. So next up we got Military Tradition, which requires Craftsmanship, and as I already mentioned, Military Tradition itself grants flanking and support combat bonuses to all combat units. Then we got policies. We got Maneuver, which is a military policy, which gives you +100% production towards ancient and classical era heavy and light cavalry units. So that's a really big bonus right there. Really nice, especially for some of the civilizations like Scythia. And then we got the Great Person policy, which gives you +2 Great General points per turn. So next up we got State Workforce, which gives you an economic and a military policy. The economic one gives you +15% production towards ancient and classical wonders, and the military one is unit maintenance reduced by 1 gold per turn per unit. Then we got Early Empire. The Early Empire unlocks the abilities to enforce borders and grant open borders to other civilizations. That's the built-in bonus. And then we got Land Surveyors, which is an economic policy. It reduces the cost of purchasing a tile by 20%. And Colonization economic policy, which gives you +50% production towards settlers. This can be pretty useful even later on, because the cost of settlers increases the more settlers you recruit. And then open borders. Next up, we got Mysticism, which is the last civic in this era, and it unlocks the Oracle Wonder. Patronage of great people costs 25% less faith, and districts in this city provide +2 great person points of their type. And the Oracle also gives +1 culture and +1 faith. Then we got 2 policies, also unlocked by Mysticism, +2 great scientist points per turn, and +2 great prophet points per turn. And Mysticism also awards 1 envoy. That's something you use for city-states. And then we got Classical Era. We will start from Games and Education. Games and Education unlocks the Arena, which is a building that costs 1 gold maintenance, and it gives you +1 amenity from Entertainment. Then we got the Colosseum, which is a wonder. The Colosseum's culture and amenities are extended to each city center within 6 tiles. Must be built on flat land adjacent to an entertainment complex district. This is a mechanic that will appear later for a few buildings in the game. You can build something and then have it affect more than just one city. So that's quite interesting. And the Colosseum also gives you +2 culture and +3 amenities from entertainment. Then we got the entertainment complex, which, as you probably noticed, is actually required for these things, so you cannot build an arena without an entertainment complex. And an entertainment complex is a district. A district in your city dedicated to keeping people happy by increasing amenities. And you get +1 amenity from entertainment. And then we got a policy, the only policy unlocked by the Civic, +1 housing in all cities with at least 2 specialty districts. It can be useful early on. Then we got one of the most important civics in the early game, which is political philosophy, because political philosophy unlocks your first 3 governments, and as a general rule, you will want a government as soon as possible, because not only it unlocks more policy slots, it also gives you various bonuses. Each government has an inherent bonus and a legacy bonus, and the way the legacy bonus works is that it builds up over time, and you get to keep it if you switch to a different government, which is why it's called the legacy bonus. In case of autocracy, your capital receives +1 boost to all yields, and the legacy bonus gives you bonus to wonder production, 10% plus 1% for every 20 turns on standard speed. Influence generation is exactly the same for all 3 of these governments, so there's no difference there. You gain 3 influence points per turn, and at 100 points you earn 1 envoy. Oligarchy has an inherent bonus which gives all land melee units +4 combat strength, so that's not too bad, especially for early war. You don't necessarily want autocracy for early war, it's not quite that obvious. There are different number of policies, so you might want to go for the extra military policy from autocracy, but the combat bonus from oligarchy is quite nice too. Anyway, the legacy bonus for oligarchy is that you get bonus combat experience for units 20% plus 1% for every 5 turns on standard speed. And finally, we got Classical Republic. The inherent bonus is that all your cities with a district receive +1 amenity, and the legacy bonus gives you bonus great people points 15% plus 1% for every 15 turns on standard speed. And then we also got 2 policies, Charismatic Leader, which gives you +2 influence points per turn towards earning city-state envoys, and Diplomatic League. The first envoy you send to each city-state counts as 2 envoys. So that's political philosophy. Next up, we got Drama and Poetry, which unlocks the Theatre Square, which is a culture district, as you might have guessed. It gives you +1 great writer, great artist, and great musician point per turn. It also allows you to build various culture buildings in your city, like the amphitheater. It also gives you +1 culture from each adjacent wonder, and +1 culture from every 2 adjacent district tiles. And it also gives you +2 culture per citizen. That's the citizen yield. Then we got the amphitheater, which gives you +2 culture, +1 citizen slot, +1 great writer point per turn, and +1 great work of writing slot. And finally, Literary Tradition, which is +2 great writer points per turn. Next up, we got Military Training, which awards you one envoy, and it unlocks 2 military policies. The first one gives you yields gained from pillaging are doubled for pillaging improvements, so that's not too bad if you are at war with a neighbor, and then you get plus 30% production towards encampment districts and buildings for that district. So that's military training. Then we got defensive tactics, which gives you another 2 military policies, plus 6 city defense strength and plus 5 city ranged strength, so that's a typical defensive policy, and plus 100% production towards defensive buildings. Then we got recorded history, which unlocks the Great Library Wonder. Receive boosts to all ancient and classical era technologies, must be built on flat land adjacent to campus district with a library. And it also gives you plus 2 science, plus 1 great scientist point per turn, and plus 2 great works of writing slots. And then we got natural philosophy economic policy, which gives you plus 100% campus district adjacency bonuses. This is really good with a civ like Brazil. And then we got Theology, which is the last civic for this era. Theology also awards you one envoy, and it unlocks the Temple, which is a building that allows the purchasing of apostles. Apostles can be purchased with faith, can only be purchased with faith. There's no other way to get them. The building also gives you plus 4 faith, plus 1 citizen slot, plus 1 great prophet point per turn, and plus 1 relic slot. And it requires both a shrine and a holy site. So then we got a wonder, Mahabodhi Temple. It grants you 2 apostles. It must be built on woods adjacent to a holy site district with a temple. And you must have founded a religion. It also gives you plus 4 faith. And finally, we got Scripture Economic Policy, which gives you plus 100% holy site adjacency bonuses. So that's classical era done. We are moving on to medieval era. And we start medieval era from Naval Tradition, which again awards you one envoy. So if you want envoys very quickly, you can focus on the civics tree. It's not a bad idea. So the first policy you get from Naval Tradition is Naval Infrastructure, which is an economic policy that gives you plus 100% harbor district adjacency bonuses, and Navigation, which gives you plus 2 Great Admiral points per turn. Next up, we got Feudalism, and Feudalism gives you plus 1 food for each adjacent farm improvement when 3 farm improvements are adjacent to each other. So that's an interesting one. And it also unlocks Feudal Contract, which gives you plus 50% production towards medieval and Renaissance era melee and ranged units, and Serfdom, which is an economic policy, and newly trained builders gain 2 additional build actions. Normally they only have 3, so with Serfdom they will have 5. Then we got Civil Service, which allows alliances. Right here you can establish an alliance with a declared friend. Allies may not go to war, automatically have open borders, and each receives a casus belli on an aggressor civilization if one of their allies loses a city. So if you get allied with someone and that someone loses a city to another civ, you will automatically have a CB, so a reason to declare formal war. So the policies are Retainers, which is a military policy that gives you plus 1 amenity for cities with a garrisoned unit, and then Meritocracy. Each city receives plus 1 culture for each specialty district it constructs. So next up, we got the next tier, and we'll start from Mercenaries, which again awards 1 envoy. And you get policies. The first one is a military policy, and yields gained from pillaging are doubled for pillaging districts. Professional Army, 50% discount on all unit upgrades. And Trade Confederation, plus 1 culture and plus 1 science from international trade routes. Next up, Medieval Fairs, which unlocks the Merchant Confederation diplomatic policy, which is plus 1 gold from each of your envoys at city-states, and Aesthetics economic policy, plus 100% theater square district adjacency bonuses, and Medina Quarter, plus 2 housing in all cities with at least 3 specialty districts. Then we got Guilds. Guilds unlocks the Chichen Itza Wonder, which gives you +2 culture to all rainforest tiles for this city, +1 production to all rainforest tiles for this city, and it must be built on a rainforest. So if you have a lot of rainforests, if you are Brazil and you have rainforest bias, it's a pretty good one. Then we got Craftsman, which is an economic policy that gives you 100% industrial zone adjacency bonuses, or plus 100%, I assume, but that's actually an error on the tooltip. Yep, that does look like an error on the tooltip. Hey, I found an error. Anyway, next up, town charters, plus 100% commercial hub district adjacency bonuses, and traveling merchants, which is +2 great merchant points per turn. Next up, we got Divine Right, which is the earliest new government you get after the initial 3. It also unlocks Mont Saint-Michel, which is a wonder. All apostles you create gain the martyr ability in addition to a second ability you choose normally. Must be built on floodplains or marsh. It also gives you +2 faith and +2 relic slots. And the monarchy government, the inherent bonus is +2 housing in any city with medieval walls, and the legacy bonus is bonus influence points towards envoys, 20% plus 1% for every 10 turns on standard speed. And influence generation is higher compared to the previous 3 governments. You gain 5 influence points per turn, and at 150 points you earn 2 envoys. So that is quite a significant improvement. Then we got Chivalry, which is a military policy. It gives you plus 100% production towards medieval, Renaissance, and industrial era heavy and light cavalry units. A lot of these military production policies are really strong. 100% boost is huge. And then we got Gothic architecture, which is an economic policy, plus 15% production towards medieval and Renaissance wonders. And with that, we finished medieval era. And we move on to Renaissance era. The first policy in Renaissance era is going to be exploration, and exploration gives your pasture improvements +1 food, so that's not too bad. And it unlocks another government, which is the Merchant Republic. The Merchant Republic gives you 2 additional trade routes as an inherent bonus, and the legacy bonus gives you discount on gold purchases, 15% plus 1% for every 15 turns on standard speed. And influence generation is exactly the same as for monarchy. And then we also got native conquest military policy. Combat victories over units from earlier eras provide gold equal to 50% of the combat strength of the defeated unit. And then colonial offices, plus 15% faster growth for cities not on your original capital's continent. And in case you don't know, one landmass in Civ 6 can be divided into many different continents. So something to keep in mind, this is actually a pretty good one. Then we got Humanism, which unlocks the Art Museum, which is a building that requires a theater square and an amphitheater. These 2 buildings are actually mutually exclusive, you can't build them both in the same place, in the same district and city. So the Art Museum holds great works of art. It may not be built in a theater square district that already has an archaeological museum. It also gives you +2 culture, +1 citizen slot, +1 great writer point per turn, +2 great artist points per turn, and +3 great works of art slots. And then we got archaeological museum, which holds artifacts. It may not be built in theater square district that already has an art museum. It gives you +2 culture, +1 citizen slot, +1 great writer point per turn, +2 great artist points per turn, and +3 artifact slots. Then we got invention, which gives you +2 great engineer points per turn, and +2 great artist points per turn. Next up, we got diplomatic service. So this is another hugely important civic in early Renaissance era, because this allows you resident embassies and grants you the ability to construct a spy. It also unlocks 4 casus bellis, which you can use to justify wars. And these casus bellis are Holy War, War of Liberation, War of Reconquest, and Protectorate War. We'll discuss them in just a moment. So it also unlocks a diplomatic policy, which gives you +50% production towards spies, and spy operations take 25% less time, because the way spies work in Civilization 6, you actually have to build them, just like you would build a unit. And they cost quite a lot of hammers too. So resident embassy. You can establish a permanent embassy with this power. If accepted, the recipient will be a bit friendlier, and you will gain a level of access, and the recipient's capital will be revealed, in case you've not revealed the capital already. So, the 4 casus bellis. First, we got Holy War. It's used to declare war on a power that has religiously converted one of your cities. All warmonger penalties are halved. Then we got Liberation War, which is used to declare a war on a power that has captured a city from one of your friends or allies. No warmonger penalty for liberating any of those cities. Then we got Reconquest War, which is used to declare war on a power that has captured one of your cities, and no warmonger penalty applies here. And Protectorate War, which is used to declare war on a power that has attacked one of your allied city-states. No warmonger penalty for liberating that city-state. And that's diplomatic service. Next up, we got Reform the Church, which unlocks Theocracy. That's the third mid-game government that you can unlock. It has the same exact influence generation as Merchant Republic and Monarchy, and the inherent bonus is that you can buy land combat units with faith, and all units gain +5 religious strength in theological combat. The legacy bonus gives you a discount on faith purchases, 15% plus 1% for every 15 turns on standard speed. Next up, we got Wars of Religion military policy, which is +4 combat strength when fighting civilizations that follow other religions. Then we got Religious Orders, which is an economic policy. All religious units gain +5 religious strength in theological combat. And finally, another economic policy, which doubles faith yield from holy site district buildings. And then we got Mercantilism, which gives your camp improvements +1 production. And it unlocks the Privateer, which is a naval unit, Renaissance era ranged naval unit with the ability to coastal raid. Cannot be seen unless adjacent to it. And it has 40 melee strength, 40 ranged strength, range of 2, and 4 movement. And then we got Logistics military policy, which gives you +1 movement if starting turn in friendly territory. And an economic policy, which gives you +4 gold and +1 faith from all trade routes. That's a pretty good one. Then we got the Enlightenment. Religious tourism effects are halved versus your civilization. That's the built-in bonus for the Enlightenment. It gives you the Rationalism economic policy, which is +100% science from campus district buildings. That's a pretty good one. Free market economic policy, which is +100% gold yield from commercial hub district buildings. And Liberalism, which is +1 amenity to all cities with at least 2 specialty districts. And that finishes Renaissance era. We move on to Industrial era. And we start Industrial era from Colonialism, which awards 1 envoy again. And it gives you 3 policies. Press gangs military policy, which is 100% production towards Renaissance and Industrial era naval units. Colonial taxes, plus 25% gold in cities not on your original capital's continent. And a diplomatic policy, which is +2 science, culture, faith, and gold from each city-state you are sovereign of. Sounds potentially really good for Greece. Then we got civil engineering, which allows you to build farms on grassland hills and plains hills. It also unlocks urban defenses, giving all of your cities an automatic 200 fortification strength and the ability to bombard. It also unlocks the public works economic policy, which is +30% production towards builders, and newly trained builders gain 2 extra build actions. This is kind of like 2-in-1 policy, because both these bonuses were separate policies earlier, but now you got 2-in-1. And then we got Skyscrapers economic policy, which is +15% production towards Industrial era and later wonders. Then we got Nationalism, which grants you the ability to construct an additional spy. It also allows forming 2 identical units into a corps or a fleet. It also allows 1 new casus belli that can be used to justify wars, colonial wars. So that's actually a pretty important civic in the mid-game. And it unlocks the military policy, which gives you plus 50% production towards industrial and modern era melee and ranged units. And national identity, which is units have 50% less combat strength reduction from being injured. And colonial war is used to declare war on a power that is 2 technology eras behind you. All warmonger penalties are halved. And in case you're not aware what a core is, it's basically a new mechanic in Civ 6 that allows you to kind of combine 2 identical units into one. So that's a core. Then there's also an army, which allows you to combine 3 units into one. So the ability to do that is unlocked through the Civics tree, and not through the technology tree. That's pretty interesting. Anyway, next we got Opera and Ballet, which awards 1 envoy again. And it unlocks the Bolshoi Theater, which is a wonder which awards 2 randomly chosen free civics when completed. Must be built on flat land adjacent to a theater square district. It also gives plus 2 great writer and great musician points per turn, plus 1 great work of writing slot, and plus 1 great work of music slot. Then we got the Grand Opera economic policy, which is plus 100% culture yield from theater square district buildings. And Symphony's great person policy, plus 4 great musician points per turn. Next up, natural history. Natural history reveals antiquity sites and allows construction of archaeologists. It also awards 1 envoy. And it unlocks the zoo, which is a building that requires entertainment complex and an arena. And the bonus extends to each city center within 6 tiles. So again, that's a building that can potentially affect more than just 1 city, which makes district planning that much trickier. If you want to take advantage of this, you have to plan your districts for that. It also gives plus 1 amenity from entertainment. Then we got the Hermitage, which is a wonder. It must be built along a river. It gives you plus 3 great artist points per turn and plus 4 great works of art slots. And it also allows you to build the archaeologist unit, who can find and extract artifacts from antiquity sites to be displayed in their home city's museum and antiquity site. Then we got Urbanization, which unlocks the neighborhood district. This is the district that you use in the mid-late game to get housing, basically. So it provides housing based on the appeal of the tile. So in case you were wondering from the early Civilization 6 reveals what exactly appeal does, because it appears constantly, this is what it does. You get better housing from the neighborhood district based on the appeal, as you can see on the tooltip right now. Then we got public transport economic policy, and this gives you 50 gold per appeal of tile when replacing a farm with a neighborhood district. That's actually a pretty interesting policy. You could potentially get quite a lot of gold from this one. And then we got military research policy, which gives your military academies and seaports plus 1 science. Then we got Scorched Earth, which awards 1 envoy, and it unlocks 3 policies. Total war policy, yields gained from pillaging are doubled. Exploration policy, no, that's not exploration. That's expropriation policy. Settler cost reduced by 50%, plot purchase cost reduced by 20%. This can actually be pretty big because the cost of a settler will really go up significantly, especially if you are going very wide. And then we got military organization, which gives you plus 4 great general points per turn. And next up we got the modern era. First we got conservation, which awards 1 envoy, and more importantly, it allows the building of national parks and the purchase of naturalists with faith. It allows builders to plant woods, and woods in your territory that have never been removed gain plus 1 appeal, so that's actually a really interesting mechanic. I like that quite a bit. And the naturalist unit is a late-game civilian unit who can create a single national park to attract tourists. He can be purchased with faith. And then we got the resource management economic policy. One copy of a strategic resource allows you to produce and purchase units requiring it in any city. Because normally, you need 2 copies of a strategic resource to build a unit in a city that doesn't have an encampment district. Then we got mass media. The mass media unlocks the Broadway Wonder, which gives you 1 free random atomic era civic boost. It must be built on a flat land adjacent to a theater square district. It also gives +3 great writer points per turn, great musician points per turn, 3 great musician points per turn, +1 great work of writing slot, and +2 great works of music slot. Mass media also unlocks the Cristo Redentor Wonder. Tourism output from relics and holy cities is not diminished by other civilizations who have researched the Enlightenment civic, and doubles tourism output of seaside resorts across your civilization. It must be built on hills. And it also gives you +4 culture. Then we got propaganda military policy. Accumulate 25% less war wariness than usual. Because when you are at war, your cities will gain unhappiness the longer you are at war. It's the war wariness mechanic. Then we got mobilization, which allows formation of defensive pacts, allows forming 3 identical units into an army or armada. That's what I was talking about earlier with corps. Allows the new casus belli that can be used to justify wars, war of territorial expansion. So here's the first military policy, or the only military policy in mobilization. Unit maintenance cost reduced by 2 gold per turn per unit. And then the defensive pact. When either member of the alliance is attacked, all members will automatically declare war on the aggressor. And declare war of territorial expansion is used to declare war on a power that borders your empire. Must have 2 of your cities within 10 tiles of 2 opponents' cities. And warmonger penalties reduced by 25%. So that's mobilization. Next we got capitalism, which awards 1 envoy. And it gives you a great person policy, that's +4 great merchant points per turn. And market economy, economic policy, your international trade routes provide +1 gold per luxury and strategic resource improved at the destination, as well as +2 culture and +2 science. And ideology, which grants the ability to construct an additional spy, and it unlocks the police state diplomatic policy, enemy spies level reduced by 2 in your lands. However, all cities suffer -1 amenity. And then we got nuclear program. It awards 1 envoy, and it unlocks the Nobel Prize Great Person policy. It gives you +4 great scientist points per turn, and nuclear espionage. Spies who steal a tech boost without being detected gain an extra boost. Then we got the Suffrage, which unlocks one of the late-game governments, democracy. So democracy has an inherent bonus. Patronage of great people costs 50% less gold, and a legacy bonus yields from district projects 30% plus 1% for every 10 turns on standard speed. And influence generation is 7 influence points per turn, and at 200 points you earn 3 envoys. All 3 of these governments will have the same exact influence generation. And policies, there are quite a few here. Economic union, plus 100% commercial hub and harbor district adjacency bonuses, plus 50% production towards modern and atomic air units. Arsenal of democracy, your trade routes to an ally's city provide +2 food and +2 production for both cities. And New Deal, +4 housing, +2 amenities, -8 gold to all cities with at least 3 specialty districts. That's an interesting one. So if you have a lot of gold, you can get housing and amenities, if you lack that part. And then we got Totalitarianism, which unlocks the fascism government, which gives all your combat units +4 combat strength as the inherent bonus. So that's going to be the government of choice for late game wars, probably. And the legacy bonus is a bonus to unit production, 20% plus 1% for every 10 turns on standard speed. Influence generation is the same exact one as for democracy. And then we got a few policies. Lightning warfare, plus 100% production for modern atomic and information era heavy and light cavalry units. Third alternative, plus 4 gold from each research lab, military academy and power plant. Martial law, accumulate 25% less warwariness than usual. And gunboat diplomacy, open borders with all city-states and plus 4 influence points per turn towards earning envoys. So that's a pretty good one if you want to focus on city-states a lot. And then we got class struggle, which unlocks communism. Communism gives all your land units plus 4 defense strength, and the legacy bonus is a bonus to all production, 10% plus 1% for every 20 turns on standard speed. And again, same exact influence generation. And then we got 5-year plan, plus 100% campus and industrial zone district adjacency bonuses. Collectivization, plus 4 food from domestic trade routes. And patriotic war, plus 100% production from 4 modern atomic and information era support units. And defense of the motherland, no warwariness from combat in your territory. And that ends the modern era. Next up, we got the atomic era. First, we got cultural heritage, which awards 1 envoy, and it unlocks the Sydney Opera House wonder. It must be built on the coast, adjacent to a land and a harbour district. It gives plus 8 culture, plus 5 great musician points per turn, and plus 3 great works of music slots. Then we got heritage tourism, which is plus 100% tourism from great works of art and artifacts, and a shipwreck resource. I'm not sure what the shipwreck resource actually is. Probably something you can get artifacts from, maybe? But I don't know. Probably something to do with artifacts, but it's not actually explained here, and I've not played the game this far as of this video. So then we got the Cold War. Cold War grants you the ability to construct an additional spy, and there's a cryptography diplomatic policy, enemy spy level reduced by 2 in your lands. Your spy level is increased by 1 for offensive operations. Then we got international waters military policy, plus 100% production towards modern atomic and information era naval units, excluding carriers. And containment diplomatic policy. Each envoy you send to a city-state counts as 2 if its sovereign has a different government than you. And then professional sports, which unlocks a stadium, that's a building which requires a zoo and an entertainment complex, and the bonus extends to each city center within 6 tiles, and you get plus 2 amenities from entertainment. Then we got Estadio do Maracana, which is a wonder, plus 2 amenities in each city in your civilization must be built on flat land adjacent to an entertainment complex district with a stadium. It also gives you plus 6 culture and plus 2 amenities from entertainment. Then we got sports media economic policy, plus 100% theater square district adjacency bonuses, and stadiums generate plus 1 amenity. Next up, we got rapid deployment. It allows for the transport of land units between aerodrome districts that contain airports. So that's kind of like the airlift of Civ 6. And it gives you the military first policy, plus 50% production towards atomic and information era melee and ranged units. Then we got the space race, which gives you satellite broadcasts economic policy. It triples tourism from great works of music. And integrated space cell military policy, plus 15% production towards space race projects if a city has either a military academy or a seaport. And finally, 2 policies in the information era. Globalization, which gives you plus 1 gold to all plantations, can be completed multiple times, increasing your points to the score victory. And there's social media, which again can be completed multiple times, increasing your points towards the score victory. And the policies are strategic air force, plus 50 production towards information. I assume that's plus 50%, so that's another error. Yeah, this has to be plus 50%. Production towards information era units and towards all carriers. And e-commerce, economic policy, plus 5 production and plus 10 gold from international trade routes. That's actually huge. And International Space Agency, plus 10% science per city-state you are the suzerain of. If you finish the civics tree, but you are still nowhere close to the end of the tech tree. And the social media policies are online communities, which gives you plus 50% tourism output to civilizations to which you have trade route. And collective activism, plus 10% culture per city-state you are the suzerain of. I assume this would stack with Greece. Sounds interesting. So that's the end of the civics tree. I hope you found this video useful and informative. If you did, let me know in the comments below and consider leaving a like. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.